A look back at 2025 with Governor Braun's first year at the helm. Data centers becoming a top issue, and immigration reform sweeps the state. From the television studios at WFYI Public Media, it's Indiana Week in Review for the week ending December 26, 2025.
Indiana Week in Review is produced by WFYI in association with Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations.
This year has been marked by numerous changes inside Indiana government structures that have been influenced by the Trump administration. Indiana Governor Mike Braun has stood alongside the president during what has been a busy year for Indiana policy.
Mike Braun's first year as governor has been marked by a conservative agenda that includes a restructuring of the executive branch, budget cuts, and overhauling regulations on education and the environment. Braun has backed many federal moves aligned with the Trump administration, starting with the removal of DEI efforts throughout state departments. Early in the year, agencies made cuts as they faced a grim revenue forecast. And at the same time, Braun touted property tax reform that is now expecting to impact the budgets of local schools and cities. The governor has supported Trump's wishes when it came to congressional redistricting and immigration enforcement.
How has Braun's first year shaped up? It's the first question for our Indiana Week in Review panel. Democrat Ann DeLaney. Republican Mike O'Brien. Oseye Boyd, editor-in-chief at Mirror Indy, and Niki Kelly, editor-in-chief at Indiana Capital Chronicle. I'm Jill Sheridan, managing editor at WFYI. So, Ann, how do you think Governor Mike Braun's first year has gone?
If you want to, judge his first year, you probably have to go back to June of 2024 and look at what happened to him in the convention when his own hand-picked lieutenant governor candidate was rejected by his party. I mean, he dealt with the IADC, okay, but there's no replacement. He obviously put all his eggs in the redistricting basket, which was a bad mistake, and now he's attacking the Senate that he's going to have to go to if he has a legislative agenda to try to get it passed. And there have been a series of things that he's done that have not been thought through, that, quote, property tax reform. The average person is not going to feel that, but the average community is going to feel it. And he's managed to hurt both companies that don't have a good property tax base and those communities, and communities that are expanding. His property tax reform is damaging them both. And there are going to be significant impacts on schools, police, and fire around the state because of this reform, all because they've spent all the money. I mean, the business personal property tax give back, the cut in the corporate income tax, the cut in the personal income tax, guarantees that there's no money there for child care. I mean, people are going to be desperate for child care because there are child care facilities closing because of those cutbacks, and health care and all the things that are important to the quality of life he's failed on. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I thought when he came in that he would try to moderate the right-wing crazies on the Republican side, and instead he's jumped into bed with them. It was a disappointment.
Well, Mike, we've seen, a fracture in the Republican Party, with Governor Braun under his helm this year. Do you think that this is going to pose a further problem for him moving forward?
Well, one, I think he came in at a difficult time. He came in right at the end of a lot of COVID money. If you look at the budget cycle in 2023 versus when he came in 2025, I mean, it was a $5 billion flip from having an excess surplus of $5 or $6 billion that the legislature and the governor went in and spent through in 23, comes in 25, and now we're looking at a $2.5 billion forecast, the downward forecast that he had to go manage, and did that really well. And I think his reorganization of state government is probably like the biggest hallmark so far. It's more transparent. It's more accountable because you know who is actually like in charge of each, of these agencies, and he reduced the size of the cabinet so that there are fewer people over more agencies. So all of those things were positive things right at the beginning of the year. He got his property tax reform legislation, which, whatever you think of it, is going to help homeowners. and businesses. While now the legislature's going to have to come back in this year and clean up some of the edges of,
whether you have to lay off police, for example.
Yeah, I mean, the areas where they know they missed, but have plenty of time to do it because the academic dates aren't for years from now. But so I think there were a lot of high points. I think he came in at a difficult time, and because he came in with a business-minded approach to it, was able to kind of manage through that.
Yeah,
really well.
He obviously didn't have as much money, but he was able to expand vouchers, wasn't he? And he was able to do the business personal property tax, wasn't he? I mean, all those things at the same time he's depriving health units of the money they need to make our population more healthy, and child care and other important Hoosier things.
Well, Niki, you've seen him at work here this past year. Do you think he was off to a strong start, and maybe he's dealing with some issues now that?
I mean, he was very busy in the beginning. I mean, he issued a ton of executive orders, many of which mirrored similar ones from President Trump. He's made a lot of cuts to state government that definitely have impacts. In terms of the structure you mentioned, I mean, I know what the structure is, but I don't think the structural changes he made mean anything to the basic Hoosier on the street of who's a cabinet member and who's not.
The administration of state government, that matters. I mean, they may not see all the dots connected, but I mean, there's a lot of people that are interacting with government that are doing so in a more efficient way now.
I don't have any proof of that, but I'm just saying, he struggled to get what he got out of property taxes. He obviously failed completely on the redistricting front. He continues to fight sometimes with his own lieutenant governor. So it hasn't, it wasn't a great first year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what his agenda is for the second year. It's December. We still have no idea, and they're going to be ended by the end of February. So I think it's probably time. Yeah, none. I think it'd be great to start talking about that.
I mean, we did see a lot of those early moves, significantly DEI efforts that were cut out of a lot of state programs.
DEI.
Yes, and then also, a number of agencies have had to make those cuts. Do you think those are the things that more resonate with people that are, sort of seeing how Braun did this first year?
I think those are things he may want people to remember, because I'm with Niki, no one's going to know about the different heads of agencies and the efficiencies there. But I think this has been a whirlwind year. He came in like a lion. So I'm curious to see what his agenda is going to be for the next year, because there's been some efficiencies, cuts for government efficiency, but also where are you putting the money toward? When we say we don't have money, but we're putting it toward, like you said, vouchers, but not toward child care. That, I think, resonates with people. People remember that. Those who need child care remember that, especially right now when we have people who are losing daycares, people who can't afford daycare. Then you also have people come back to work, but now tell them to bring your baby to work and see if a coworker is going to keep your baby for a little bit while you go off to a meeting. There's just I think some strange things that have been happening. And then we've just seen the redistricting happen as well. So this has kind of soured, I think, shown his lack of power in some areas. For sure.
We have seen him reeling a little bit from the recent redistricting vote. What should the governor, focus on moving forward, do you think, Mike? Well,
the redistricting, I mean, people around the State House are normally used to be sitting here in the middle of December, and what the House Republicans are going to do, what the House Democrats want to do, what the Senate's going to work on, the governor. And there's a cadence to this, and redistricting just, killed it. And so now we've got 3 weeks before the start of the real start of the session, not this fake start to the session on December 1st, with really no clear idea of what anyone wants to do or what the plan is for now. This what's going to be about 7 weeks of session is going to be fast, and so what what the public needs to understand in that is, whatever the agenda is, they're going to have 10 days to get it moving, and that's it. 2 hearings and. It's either moving or it's not. And so, for those of us that are around the State House a lot, the cadence and the rhythm to this session is really hard to understand. What are the opportunities going to be in this now very narrow frame of time? After they all came out of this redistricting thing, angry at each other.
Right.
Like, no one's getting along. The Republicans aren't getting along. The Democrats aren't getting along.
Yeah, I never heard anyone take the microphone in one of those chambers and call the other side evil. I never heard that before. And I heard that in that discussion.
The overt partisan nature of it, and even between the Republicans was unprecedented for me. For me,
it's very hard to put that genie back in the bottle. At least
I think it's hard to just go home and come back in 3 weeks and pretend like none of it ever happened. And now we're going to go to health committee.
So maybe we could hypnotize them and let them think.
Right.
Yeah.
He also said he loved them though too. So.
Well,
which predominates?
I don't know.
We'll see how it happens in 2026. Indiana is also at the center of a data center boom, with billions of dollars in projects underway. Farrah Anderson reports 2025 was marked by proposals for data centers throughout Indiana and community pushback.
Data centers store and process huge amounts of digital information. As artificial intelligence grows and demand for storage increases, companies are racing to build more of them. And Indiana has become a fast-growing destination, thanks to generous tax incentives and plenty of available land. But many communities are pushing back. Bryce Gustafson, an organizer with the Citizens Action Coalition, has been helping residents respond.
It's really found traction in these communities, unlike anything that I've really seen.
Residents across the state have raised similar concerns, including strain on the power grid, heavy water use, and doubts that the economic benefits will reach local people.
So, Mike, how should communities respond to this, increase in a number of data centers that are looking to come into Indiana?
Well, not the way they have been, which is to take either it's on data centers or energy development. Water, we dealt with the LEAP district, and you see towns and communities or counties taking really punitive steps to stop what should be statewide assets or statewide policies. And I think that's where the legislature has gone in the last 12 months. I think there's been a real recognition that we can't let a county decide how the water flows through it. These need to be policies that are statewide. And for data centers, they are energy intensive and they are water intensive and they require a lot of resources. They also need to exist. Like, they can exist somewhere.
Illinois?
I'd prefer they exist. Well, Illinois can't do it because of their energy policy.
Okay, how about Ohio?
So I don't understand why. One, I don't understand the aversion to a data center. I understand that there are things that need to be figured out. I also don't. I can't. Back to the property tax conversation. You have some pretty small places with very small tax bases turning their nose up at $10 billion in investment. And it's like, are you out of your mind? The one in the city of Indianapolis, the Google Center in Indianapolis, data center, they got rejected by the Board of Zoning Appeals. They wanted to do that in favor of a neighborhood that's never going to be built, which now brings in all kinds of other problems: fire protection, police protection. Now they got to be able to build another school, and it's like, okay, well, or we could just build this data center and go to the bank. And these things need to exist. They can. I guess your health records and all of your personal information can exist in a data center in Mexico, but I'd rather have it be in Cloverdale, right. And see billions of dollars invested in those communities. So I think the legislature is on the front end of coming in and preempting a lot of what local government's able to stop and do in this and other areas.
Well, I mean, we have seen such a strong community activism around this issue as well, and that has been heartening to see so many people get involved. Right. But are they possibly misguided if this is just
I think we're seeing all of this development of data centers because of too many incentives offered by the state of Indiana to bring them here. At the same time, we didn't hear our governor or either of our senators protest when Hawley stopped the cheaper and more environmentally friendly electricity coming from Kansas through Missouri. Nobody said anything about that, okay? We have the highest residential electric rates in the Midwest, the highest right now. And this is going to compound that problem, never mind the water problem. And it just seems to me that everybody has to step back. When you say it brings billions in development, certainly it brings construction jobs. It's unclear how many long-term jobs are going to be available as a result of that. And it's going to put a very big load on our electric grid. At the same time, the Republicans are actually talking about bringing back coal. Okay? I mean, you know, talk about being, well, yeah, but it's more coal, and it's against wind and solar. And that, it seems to me, is self-destructive. If they were in favor of lowering the utility rates by bringing in the solar and the wind, they might have a more receptive audience.
Well, Niki, I mean, we do have to have some regulation and understanding of how we do move forward with these data centers in Indiana. Are lawmakers considering good measures to make it happen?
I think they're getting frustrated by all the not in my backyard stuff, and they're probably going to take over kind of on the front end. But the end result is no one's selling these. I mean, you just said take the money to the bank, but I can never find out what money a community is getting. We give them a bunch of sales tax. We give them this huge sales tax exemption, which could be helping pay for child care. We're losing hundreds of millions a year in state coffer money from that sales tax exemption. Then we give them property tax abatements. So that's the main thing with data centers for me is I don't understand what they're bringing to the community.
Right. I think you're not alone.
I think a lot of community members, we've heard that from them, is that, you know, what's a long-term benefit for us here in Martindale-Brightwood and like, you know, Decatur Township, like they just aren't seeing it. Is that what you're hearing as well?
I'm hearing that there are environmental concerns. There are electricity concerns. But also, no one is selling this to make me understand why we need this. To your point, they are here. We do need them, but no one is telling people why they're here and why we need them, why it's a mistake to send it to another state. We're just hearing we're going to come and we're going to put this here, and if you like it, don't like it, oh well. So people are just, we don't like it because we don't know why it's here. We don't know how many jobs. We keep talking about all these jobs. How many? How long are they going to be here? Is it just going to be a janitor who comes in, a custodian who comes in and cleans at night? Like, are people actually going to work here? We don't know anything, and I think that's the biggest issue is the lack of knowledge about what damage.
The front end needs to improve for sure.
I think so.
I think we get too far down the road on this is coming. Well, who is it? I can't tell you. And I'm under an NDA. You'll find out later.
Everything is top secret.
So all the approvals are done. That's a lot. Actually, a lot of the work we do is try to lay that groundwork, and I think the industry is starting to figure out, we got to get way ahead of this because we can't just drop into a community and not tell anybody what's going on.
That assumes that the message that they can provide is a positive message that the community will want. If there are no jobs and if there is a concern on the electric rates and everything else, that's not going to sell well.
But I think that's been part of a bigger conversation about energy development and having a statewide water strategy. Let's figure that. We don't have one.
Or how about having wind and solar?
We do have those things.
But we aren't bringing it from Kansas.
But we'd have more of it.
Thanks to the Republicans.
We'd have more of it if we didn't have local control over.
I don't disagree with that.
Not letting a farmer sell his farm to a solar.
I don't disagree with that.
Solar on all the data center properties and roofs.
That's a fast-moving issue.
There you go.
Another issue, the issue of immigration, has become contentious in Indiana and influenced other communities all across the state. Samantha Horton has more.
At the beginning of the year, Indiana law enforcement around the state began to sign agreements to work more closely with the federal government to detain immigrants. While legislation to make immigration enforcement more stringent across the board failed earlier this year, it is being considered again in the 2026 session. The state also worked with the federal government to expand detention capacity in Indiana. The Miami Correctional Facility north of Kokomo started holding people in October, and Camp Atterbury has been considered for additional detention space. The issue has deeply impacted the immigrant community, who've described experiencing heightened stress and fear because of these policies. This month, dozens of immigrants were denied their final step in becoming U.S. citizens at a naturalization ceremony in Indianapolis.
So, Niki, we've seen a lot of activity around this issue, obviously, this year. What do you think, policy-wise, has really made the most impact in Indiana?
I think the biggest impact is the stuff we're seeing nationally, right, where a random person is at the Home Depot and they just get pulled up on and yanked and told to, these aren't people they have warrants for. They aren't people who have violent histories. I feel like the extremes in our world right now. We went from the extreme of allegedly, they said the Biden administration just let anyone in the world, we went from that extreme to now, we're going to basically, we closed down the border and that's one thing, but now we're going the second part, which is basically just to kick anyone out who's not white or from, sort of basic Anglo history. And I think that's bothering people. Like, I feel like there's got to be some moderation in there in the middle, but so far we're struggling to find it.
Yeah, and we, have seen this hugely impacting communities across Indiana, Oseye, when we're talking about, the fear that it's creating and the repercussions there. What in your mind has been the biggest impact in the state?
Well, I think the fear that everyone has is palpable. People are afraid to go to the grocery store. They're afraid to go to school. When you're afraid that ICE is going to come into your school and take children away. These are things we're talking about now that we didn't talk about before. That didn't ever seem plausible before. Now we're talking about, well, I don't want to give you my name just because I don't want to be at risk. You have people trying to protect communities in ways that we've never seen before. That, I think, is probably just the fear that everyone has of just not knowing what's going to happen. Getting denied. You do all the work to become a citizen, which we say we want people to do. You're supposed to do that. And then being denied at the swearing-in ceremony, that I've never heard of that before happening. So I just think there's another one coming up, I think, this week or next week. So what's going to happen there? There's just fear. There's just fear among a lot of communities that we've never had before in this country.
And Indiana lawmakers will be back, with some legislation this year that tries to make immigration enforcement a little stricter. Are they on the right track?
I don't disagree with anything that was just said. I think what is moving the needle is like these guys in rented minivans just showing up and throwing, just grabbing people off the street. I'm like, this is insane. There's got to be. I think generally the public coming into kind of this new second Trump administration did look at the southern border and go, 250,000 people a month is insane. But this has got to be that has to be fixed, and they fixed it, and I think people appreciate that part of it. But now it's, like everything else, we miss the other way. Now ICE is raiding green card meetings because there's an administrative lapse in your green card, but you're going through the right process and the legal process that is burdensome and long and hard. But a lot of people are going through this, and we're catching them on like paperwork glitches or technicalities. And these people, these aren't the criminals and drug dealers that were purported to be enforcing. These are like doctors who are here and just trying to renew a work visa. So we've clearly missed the other direction, and we've missed in a way that's scary to look at for sure. And there's just no accountability for this agency. It doesn't feel like.
Is that should there be more accountability?
Oh, absolutely. It's like the SS in Nazi Germany. You could be walking along minding your own business, or like happened at that naturalization service, doing everything that you're supposed to do to be in this country legally and become a citizen and still be grabbed off the street. It is shocking. And I agree, there has to be a moderation, but that requires an immigration bill that actually establishes a process.
Like we did it on purpose.
Yeah,
exactly.
The system is clearly failing us.
It's clearly failing.
An issue, again, that I know lawmakers will be involved in and that we will continue to look at here in Indiana. But on a lighter note, it has been a banner year for Indiana sports teams. All Major League professional teams, as well as a few Hoosier universities, have racked up impressive winning records. Sam Horton, again, has more.
From the Pacers' playoff run to the IU football season success, it's been an exciting year for sports in Indiana. For fans, it's a thrilling time after some lackluster seasons in the past years. The success has touched the Fever, the Colts, Purdue, and Notre Dame. The year has also marked the debut of a number of new professional teams. Team owners, coaches, and players say this year's success follows decades of investment and development.
So, Oseye, your favorite sports moment of the year?
Okay, mine's going to be different. I'm a volleyball mom.
Oh.
My daughter is a college player, so we were waiting years for Indy Ignite. And we got to go to the inaugural game when she was on break. Well, it was this year, but last year for her break. You know how that goes when your kids in college. But we got to go to an inaugural game together and celebrate to see professional volleyball in Indiana. So we were very excited. I'm very excited for the Indy Ignite.
I think that's been one of the wins. We've seen a number of new professional teams coming to the state because of all the legacy building in sports world over the years. Niki, I know we have a lot of college fans here.
I mean, it's hard not to choose that incredible win by the Hoosiers over Ohio State. Now, obviously, that was just the Big Ten championship, and we want them to actually win the overall championship. But that one's a hard one to beat for me.
And also,
absolutely. I mean, the idea that Indiana would be a power football school has not been in my lifetime. So it is wonderful, and it's energizing for the alumni base and the state as a whole.
Mike, what bandwagon were you on this year?
Well, I've been a sports fan. I'm like a sports junkie, and my wife has not been, except this year. And it started with the Pacers, and then we got right into we're Bears fans, and so the Bears are turning the page there too. But the one moment when Tyrese Halliburton, I can't remember the game, but when he hit that shot that bricked and went straight up and came right back down and sent the game to overtime, I was going berserk and woke my wife up.
Truly an exciting year.
So it's been a fun year.
It's been an exciting year.
That's an Indiana Week in Review for this week. Our panel has been Democrat Ann DeLaney, Republican Mike O'Brien, Oshia Boyd, Editor-in-Chief at Mirror Indy, and Niki Kelly, Editor-in-Chief at Indiana Capital Chronicle. You can find Indiana Week in Review's podcast and episodes at WFYI.org/IWIR or on the PBS app. I'm Jill Sheridan, Managing Editor at WFYI. Join us next time because a lot can happen in an Indiana week. The views expressed are solely those of the panelists.
Indiana Week in Review is produced by WFYI in association with Indiana Public Broadcasting Stations.